Although Grenada is known as the Spice Island, it wasn't always that way. There are very few endemic spices. Most of them came on ships from far away. Cocoa came from Mexico. Cinnamon, which is locally known by the name spice, came from Sri Lanka. Vanilla from Madagascar. Whatever they planted thrived here. And because Grenada was closer to Europe than most of those places, the cultivation of spices soon became big business on the island. Now, nutmeg is the queen of spices here on Grenada. In fact, until 2004 and the destruction of Hurricane Ivan, it was second in the world only to Indonesia in its output of nutmeg. But that hurricane destroyed over 90% of the nutmeg trees here on the island. And since they take a good 8 or 9 years to come to fruition, it's been a long uphill climb for the nutmeg industry here in Grenada. They've closed the factory to all visitors. And that used to be one of the great things to see and photograph on this island. But I talked my friend Roger into taking us to the Nutmeg Museum and giving us a hands-on tour of how the fruit is processed.
So the lady in the boat with a red petticoat, we say the nutmeg is referred to as Grenada's black gold because nothing is wasted. The pod is used to make jams, jellies, and the world's famous nutmeg syrup, which is this right here. And then we come to the beautiful mace, which is in the lipstick, the nail polish. It is the world's #1 preservative for the canned food industry. And yes, the nutmeg is the only spice in the world that bears 2 spices at the same time. The mace, which is this red cover in here, as the mace ages, it will become yellow. That's when it becomes a preservative. And then when you peel this open, the mace, what you have, this lovely black gloss, is the shell to which the nutmeg sits on the inside. And of course, this has about 7 to 14 different essential oils that resides in the nutmeg that is used to make perfumes, fragrances, used in your soups and stews, but very essential oils that are good for medicinal properties that are used by pharmaceutical companies. Nutmeg oil is the only oil in the world that penetrates the skin looking for inflammation. So every top massage parlor will have the nutmeg oil. And as you know, in Grenada, we say a rum punch is not complete unless it's got grated nutmeg on top, which is the final garnish to your cocktail.
On our way to the Nutmeg Museum, we passed through the fishing village of Goyave, a beautiful town where you can glimpse timeless slices of West Indian life.
Welcome. We are here in Victoria at the Nutmeg Museum, and the tour begins of the process on how we process the nutmeg once it's come from the field where we showed you the beautiful nutmeg tree already. So let us continue. And the nutmeg is very important to Grenada's economy because it was brought here in 1843 by Frank Gunny of the Banda Islands. The farmers will place the nutmeg on the tray and we will sort them to make sure, one, that they're giving us good quality nutmegs and they're without blemish. So too, when we get the mace, we put them in the trays and we sort them for the different types of quality mace. The next step is to dry the nutmegs for about 6 to 8 weeks. And because of the oil in the nutmeg, which is 7 to 14%, we do not dry them in direct sunlight. So we put them here, and ever so often we will come so that they are properly ventilated. If you were here with us, you would have gotten that beautiful smell of that nutmeg fragrance inside of this wonderful Nutmeg Museum. Once it is ready, it will be cracked, and then we will take them over to the water float area to check the nutmegs. So the heavy nutmegs, those that are good, all right, you put them in the water. Those that float are used for making perfumes and so on. Those that sinks are the ones that we bake, we cook, you know, we extract the oil from. And once they wait 48 hours to dry. So when we put them here, we let them dry for about 48 hours before sorting them again and taking them over to the size and grading area. So this is where they will get their assortment from. And you see these little holes? Yeah? So the smaller ones, the tinier ones, If they fall through, no, that's not going to work for us. So we're going to use the ones that settle here and the 110s, and then you have the bigger ones as well. Then we would start to mark the bags properly and stencil. And this is beautiful. We use an old school style of stenciling. Yeah? So we put the stencil on the bag, and as you can see, we've got all over the world: London, Warsaw, Fort de France, Montreal, Amsterdam, Marseille. And that's how we stencil the bags. Even in this 21st century, it's not laser print, it's all done by hand.
Once established, the spice plantations on Grenada thrived, although they used enslaved labor to do so. A few, like the Belmont estate, are still operating today. However, it wasn't until 1944 that the estate was bought by a Grenadian family, the Nyaks. Today, it's a thriving tourist attraction and chocolate producer. Once out of the pod, the cocoa beans need to be air-dried. And they shift them around the old-fashioned way. Because of the frequent heavy rains, they need to be able to be put indoors very quickly. Once you tour the estate and maybe have lunch, you can visit the factory and get a good look at the process of turning cocoa beans into chocolate. And maybe buy some to take with you. We headed back into the capital city for our last stop on the spice tour. I've been all over the Caribbean, and I can't think of a prettier town than St. George. There's always something to see when you cruise along the Carénage, the lively harbor boulevard. We're heading for the market, and the Sendel Tunnel is the fastest way. Built in 1894, it's a tight fit for today's vehicles, and an absolute thrill fest for pedestrians coming from the opposite direction. Market Day in St. George is a lively affair. It's the kind of place where life imitates art, and vice versa. I was looking for Margo, a charming lady who's a font of spice, wisdom, and folklore.
This is cinnamon that is grown in Grenada. The island is known as the Isle of Spice. So we call it spice, but for you, you say cinnamon. And then we have the cloves. Cloves are grown in Grenada. We stick it in the ham, on the ham, in the soup, in the meat, fish, chicken, whatever. We use it in that. And if you have a cough, you boil a few head and you drink it. We do shipment of cocoa. We parch it, we bake it, or parch, whatever word you want to use, and we make it into small balls. I have a pepper sauce, so that is a master sauce. Jordan's hot sauce, that is the name of the man who makes the pepper sauce. It is hot. This is what we make on the island. Our small business people, agro-processors, make coconut oil. This is what we grate the coconut with, and they strain and boil, and it condenses into an oil, and they strain it. No chemicals in it. It is pure coconut oil. Sea moss. It's big on the market now. We use it for minerals in the body. It has a lot of vitamins in it. But the men in Grenada, now what I'm saying to you, the men in Grenada, Caribbean men, believe it is good for them.
Ah.
Right?
Okay.
If you are in the hotel, you can ask them to let you sample a sea moss drink.
Okay.
We make a nice drink with it.
All
it
right.
builds back the cartilage in your bones and so on, and it's good for you. Yes, the men say that.
Great, okay. Before we headed back to the hotel with our stash of spices, we decided to hike up to Fort George for a different perspective on the harbor. It's a view that reminds you that things haven't changed all that much since Grenada first earned its nickname as the Spice Island.